Some claims are so dark and unsettling that it's hard for people to accept they could even be real. It often begins with a shocking statement, something so extreme that most people immediately dismiss it. And that's exactly what makes it stay with them. Then more voices come forward, not just one, but several. First, there's Jim Caviezel, the actor known for playing Jesus. He stepped away from mainstream Hollywood and began speaking about what he believes is happening behind the scenes. According to him, there's a hidden world that most people never get to see.
When we were down in Cartagena, the guys would come up, traffickers, and they would, right in front of us, ask us if we wanted niñas or niños, and little boys or little girls, and people think that that's not something that happens here in the United States. Well, absolutely it does. Over 300,000 children under the ages of 18 were sucked into the deepest recesses of hell, and it's disgusting that the media hasn't covered it like they should. There obviously is really good media like yourself, but others that completely ignore it. And I think people need to understand. American people are starting to understand what is actually going on, and are sick and tired of it, especially with the South border.
Then there's Katt Williams. For years, he has been trying to warn people that something wasn't right behind the polished image of Hollywood. He says it's not what it appears to be. According to him, it wasn't just a few individuals causing problems. It was something larger, almost like a network, a circle of powerful people who remained protected because no one was willing to speak out.
One world people exist because it's a very powerful concept to have, and far too lucrative and beneficial to not be attempted.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to run some global power organization, I would try to co-opt every single leader, try to them in, offer support, bring them out to wherever the I have my big meetings, fly everybody in private jets, talk about the climate crisis.
All organizations have to follow the same rules.
Yeah, that's wild.
Recruitment is an important facet of all.
We have to get some young global leaders.
Well, understand, this is the only reason that we can talk about these big Illuminati-like entities at this period of time.
When you see that picture, and when you spoke to Virginia, is it clear to you that Andrew was one of those men in that network who knew exactly what was going on?
Yes, it was a network, and that's been the frustration for survivors for so many years, because we've all been Epstein survivors, but also Brunel survivors. We've all been saying it's a network. It's not only Epstein or Brunel or Ghislaine Maxwell. It's a whole network of men.
And Andrew denies it, but
yeah.
he was part of that network in your view.
Of course he denies it. They all deny it. Yeah, Trump denies it. So I'm not expecting that they're going to say, I was part of this ring.
Katt Williams has been speaking about this for more than a decade. He appeared on shows, gave interviews, and tried to bring attention to it. But instead of being taken seriously, he says he was laughed at, dismissed, and pushed aside. And according to him, that silence wasn't accidental. He believes it was deliberate. That's where things begin to link to another name that shook the world, Jeffrey Epstein. When documents connected to Epstein were released, people expected to see just a few well-known names. Instead, what appeared was something much bigger, a network of connections involving celebrities, politicians, and other powerful figures.
Several of us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list of names. Yes. We know the names. Many of us were by them. Now, together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know were regularly in the Epstein world. And it will be done by survivors and for survivors.
Well, I was just saying, if they're not going to release it, then we're going to compile our own list. And just speaking to not just us survivors that have come forward, but many others that are silent, that have answers and are scared.
I think it's safe to say that any person who has been quite often there's fear in coming forward and using your voice. Is there an added level of fear with regard to Epstein and some of the celebrity or well-known powerful people who are involved here?
Of course there is.
Absolutely. I'm probably more afraid of the people we don't know about.
Yeah.
The people you don't know about, the people who know that they may be on any kind of list that is...
People who are purposely trying to get that list to stay away or not be on that list, that's who scares me.
Because the more you speak out, the more you get stalked online. And I mean, you've had people following you.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where some claims begin to draw attention to names like Oprah Winfrey and Ellen DeGeneres. It's important to remember that being mentioned in documents or having social connections does not prove any wrongdoing, but the discussion often centers on patterns: who was connected to whom, who supported whom, and who gave certain individuals a platform. For example, Oprah was known for introducing audiences to influential figures, some of whom were later revealed to be involved in serious crimes.
Oprah's former faith healer, known as John the God, was sentenced to an additional 99 years. Back in 2018, several women came forward. And he still to this day denies all the allegations, but let's see what this man has done. Guilty for SAing and over 600 women and young... I can't even read this. He also ran a baby trafficking operation where newborn children were sold to childless couples. It is reported that these girls were held captive in Brazilian farms where they were forced to produce babies before being unalived after 10 years of giving birth. An activist said there were women from Europe, the USA, and Australia who bought Brazilian babies for as much as $50,000. I get goosey bumps, and not the good kind of goosebump chills when I read things like that, because a lot of the comments under the section on Twitter are saying, she knew. And how do you think she became so untouchable and so rich?
Supporters say she couldn't have known, while critics argue that the connections still raise important questions. And that's where the tension begins to build. Because according to people like Jim Caviezel, it's not about just one individual. It's about a larger structure, something like an octopus with many arms, reaching into Hollywood, politics, and business. Then comes the most unsettling idea of all: the reason why so many stay silent. Because once someone gets close enough to that circle, they may not be able to step away. They become trapped, not always by force, but through fear, secrets, and information that could damage their careers, their reputation, or even their lives. And according to these claims, that is what's happening with people connected to Jeffrey Epstein right now.
I basically argue that Epstein was part of this transnational network that's also really transgenerational, that was created through basically this fusion of organized crime interests and intelligence agencies going back to the 1940s. And this, of course, would predate the existence of the State of Israel, which wasn't created until 1948. And these networks had already essentially come together by that point in time. And, I essentially argue that there's a significant amount of CIA ties, U.S. intelligence ties as well in this network, and that, they're transnational in scope. And a lot of the organized crime network that's affiliated with this spans, has a lot of interests in both the U.S. and Israel, but also, has expanded through partnerships, for example, between people like Robert Maxwell and Simeon Mogilevich to Eastern Europe, Russia, and beyond. And I think a lot of the stuff, for example, that sort of percolated up what was true about the stuff people were trying to go after Trump for in Russiagate was really more related to this specific organized crime network. But you can't go deep enough to prosecute anything without coming up with ties to powerful people in Israel and also the U.S. And it's ultimately, affects, at least as it relates to the U.S., both parties very significantly. Yeah. And I talked a lot about in my book about this particular network of oligarchs based in the U.S. that have been referred to by the Wall Street Journal as either the study group and the mega group, and how they seem to have a lot of influence over what Epstein was doing, and also, you know, the governments of both countries, and pretty much most of the known members or earliest members of that group, including, you know, Leslie Wexner and Charles and Edgar Bronfman, have historic, if not continuing, ties to organized crime. So I basically make a much bigger case than saying Epstein was Mossad, for example. I think just saying Epstein was Israel is kind of reductive.
The story then turns toward individuals who were believed to have gotten too close. One name that is often mentioned is Nhechi, who previously had a relationship with Ellen DeGeneres. Later in her life, she was reportedly working on projects connected to serious issues involving exploitation, something many people have speculated might have led back to Ellen. But before she was able to fully share her story, she died in a tragic car crash. What makes this even more unsettling is that people close to Nhechi believe the crash was not random. They feel that something had been developing for a long time, well before that day.
Okay, Jimmy Fallon. There's finger pointing at Jimmy Fallon. I have no idea. I don't think he did anything. That's not what I'm saying, but she's finger pointed at Jimmy Fallon. I don't know if he said something to her or warned her, or if he needs to be warned. I don't know what this means. Anne died as a result of an undercurrent and a paranoia that she was aware that she was going to pass. That is why she was fleeing the scene. So in her mind, somebody was actually getting ready to harm her or to hurt her. And this is what she thought. This is what she thought. Sorry. It's what she thought, because that's why she was speeding through the streets. And I wasn't on fire, okay? So I'm just going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to say something crazy. She wasn't on fire. Yes, I know the entire police department, LAPD, fire department, paramedics say she was. I understand what I sound like. I wasn't on fire. I'm sorry, I got to say it. I feel like she tried to put her foot on the brake and it went on the gas. Okay, so there was confusion about that. Like, I'm slamming my foot into the car, like trying to brake it. And not brake the car, but put the brakes on, and it's not working. It's only speeding up. And when I hit the building, I'm not really there. So I don't know if she got out and they found her. I don't know how it would be after you hit and then things burst into flame, but I'm not really there, is what she's saying. So for some reason, she's not connecting with the hit of the car. Like, she probably bounced out of her body, truth be told, to that. And she is saying she does not like the term mental illness. This was not a suicide, and she was not high on at the time that she passed.
Now, to be clear, these are claims, not confirmed facts. This is what witnesses and people close to her have said. But when you place those claims alongside everything that has already been discussed, it begins to feel less like one isolated event and more like part of a larger pattern. Think about it. When Jeffrey Epstein died in custody, the explanation given was a failure within the system. Cameras weren't working. Guards weren't paying attention. Too many things seemed to go wrong at the same time.
You've certainly seen this by now. It's obviously, as Wired has said, spliced together. It's missing a second, and now people are actually saying right in 3 seconds.
3 minutes.
3 minutes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and they tried to explain away 1 minute as like a nightly systems reboot, but then there's apparently 2 other minutes. I should add, I've not double-checked the digital forensics on this myself. One thing, given my background, the government alleges I'm a hacker with Anonymous and that I single-handedly orchestrated one of the largest cyber attacks the government had ever seen. So I just have to say I've not double-checked the digital forensics on this. So I'm going off of what Wired wrote.
Yeah.
To my understanding, there's no meaningful contradiction. Like, no one's come forward with an alternative theory or whatever. But I can't personally vouch for the digital forensics on the files. But I mean, that's a view from another tier. And so the tiers are stacked like one on top of another, and they're in different like arms being off from the main area in the shoe. And you can see the officers stationed there from visible from that tier. But obviously there's no cell doors, right? And so this doesn't really make a lot of sense. The video is not particularly useful for anything. And in that shoe, just so you guys know, because this is something that's not been covered, there's a camera in every cell. And on G tier, there's 2 cameras in every cell. And the problem is that guys cover them up, right? Like you're trying to use the bathroom. There's a camera pointing at you. Like, what are you going to do? You cover the camera up, right? And so pretty much at any given time in the occupied cell in that shoe, the camera's covered. Now, that's against policy, but the facility, I mean, what are they going to do? Send a team to every single cell every single day to uncover these cameras? Because the guys will just cover them back up. You also, though, expect that they would have cameras in the hallway, that we would have a camera that's facing Epstein's cell door, right? And there's no explanation given for why that tape is missing or, what happened to that camera. And they're trying to say the cameras weren't working, the DVR system had problems with the hard drives, all this.
That anxious or that quick moving that was going on the other side of the vehicle. Oh my gosh, he's completely alive. He was trying to get away. He was.
Gosh, does anybody else remember that clip? It was harrowing. How can you forget it? It was Anne Hesh after her crash, which ultimately took her life. Suddenly sitting bolt upright, unzipping herself from a body bag and looking very much alive. Then we were told a few minutes later she'd passed away. It was all very strange, very odd. There's a lot of conspiracy theories around it. Also considering she used to be the ex-partner of Ellen DeGeneres, who she talked quite openly about and was quite critical of. Now, with the P. Diddy trial coming up very soon, in May in fact, we're going to find out a lot of things, I believe, about many celebrities and the people that were connected to Diddy. Now, Ellen was a big friend of Diddy's. She moved abroad quite quickly, claiming it was because she didn't agree with Donald Trump and his policies. But is that the real reason? She moved to the Cotswolds, so she's over here in my country. She's dyed her hair brown. Her trademark blonde bob has gone. She's now in disguise. So what do we think actually really happened to Anne? Was she silenced, as a lot of people say, because she knew too much? She was making a documentary, was she, about as well, which was due to be released, and obviously that never happened. So yeah, conspiracy theorists, I'm not usually with you guys, but there's a lot to unpick in this story. Get in my comments and tell me what you think about everything.
And for many people, that led to a bigger question. Are powerful individuals truly held accountable, or do problems simply disappear? That question sits at the center of everything. Because Nhechi was reportedly working on a documentary called Children of the Machine, a project focused on exposing serious issues connected to exploitation. And according to sources, that project did not end after a death that was both shocking and to some, suspicious.
What he told us was that the CIA can intercept anything from anyone, number one. Number two, they can remotely take control of your car through the car's embedded computer. To do what? To make you drive off a bridge, into a tree, to make you and make it look like an accident.
And this morning we have some sad news about actress Anne Heche. She is in a coma after a car crash a week ago. And her family said last night she is not expected to survive.
Did she appear in any way inebriated or impaired?
She did not. She wasn't slurring her words. She had bright, beautiful blue eyes. She was just a sweet girl.
Right now, the LAPD is investigating Anne for misdemeanor DUI and hit and run. They're looking into what role Paul may have played in the collision.
Broke up with her because she had a lot of money, or you broke up with her because...
I broke up with her because her goal was to have a lot of money, and mine was to find love, and hers was I want 60 billion. Good luck. Why do you think she tried to put me in an institution, folks? I have not rambled on about her for one single moment. For 20 years, I have withheld my understanding. I have been canceled since the day I was born. I've been buried since the day I was born. Every single truth that I spoke, I was hit more, buried more, or despised more.
Because you're gonna have her wear it, and
all right.
Yo, we go so far back. You don't tell these people how far back we go.
I know, but I wear T-shirts. I don't know what that means. Anyway, all right. Let's.
I mean,
you hold that.
Okay.
All right.
I got this team to work.
No, it's okay.
I don't want no problem.
No, it's okay.
Hey, so cheers.
The team is reportedly still continuing their work, still collecting information, and still preparing to share what they have uncovered. And just when it feels like the story can't circle back, it does, returning again to Katt Williams. People close to him say that what he revealed on Club Shay Shay was only a small part, that he'd been gathering more evidence, connecting more pieces, and building a much larger picture, one that links Hollywood's past to places like Little St. James. And now, it seems he isn't the only one trying to bring attention to this. It also includes the women who survived Jeffrey Epstein.
Several Epstein survivors will be on Capitol Hill tonight for tonight's State of the Union address. Among them, Annie Farmer. She was invited by California Democratic Congressman and ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Robert Garcia. Annie, thank you for joining us. Just remind my audience, you and your sister Maria's attachment to this very difficult and criminal story.
Sure, and thanks for having me, Major. So my sister, Maria Farmer, was really the first whistleblower in this case. She reported Epstein, Maxwell, and others in this circle of power in 1996 after she was harmed on Les Wexner's property, and she also reported my own at Zora Ranch. And so, part of why I'm here is to remind people just how far back this goes and how long there's been corruption in this case.
You mentioned Les Wexner. He had a deposition, and he said to those who asked him questions, he was never interviewed by the FBI. How does that strike you?
Yeah, it was really disturbing to hear that, just because we know how central of a role he played in the financing of Epstein. People have long said an important piece of uncovering how this operation worked was following the money. And we know a large part of that money leads right back to Les Wexner. And so to think that despite my sister's, very clear description of not only how she was attacked on that property, but also how Wexner's security team threatened her and tried to stop her from leaving. And then we also know Virginia Roberts Giuffre's, talking under oath in a deposition about how he harmed her. And so the fact that the FBI never interviewed him after all of that is very alarming.
And that brings up a larger question. Why do victims seem to be silenced? Why do some of them reportedly take their own lives under unclear circumstances? It raises a possibility that certain stories may be getting too close to something. And this becomes even more notable because of recent developments in the broader situation surrounding the Epstein files. Melania Trump, the president's wife, recently stepped up to the podium at the White House as if it were a routine appearance. Reporters expected a standard statement, perhaps something related to ongoing global matters, nothing out of the ordinary. But from her very first words, everything shifted.
The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice, Maxwell. My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence. My polite reply to her email doesn't amount to anything more than a trivial note. I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998. This initial encounter with my husband is documented in detail in my book, Melania. The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together.
But what really surprised people was what she said next. She called for public hearings where survivors could come forward and share their experiences openly. And just like that, the conversation around Jeffrey Epstein returned to the center of attention. The timing left many confused. These were not new accusations, and the rumors had been circulating for years. Yet she had never spoken about them publicly in this way before. Even people within the administration were reportedly caught off guard. So the obvious question quickly spread. Why now? Some believe she may have been trying to get ahead of something. Possibly new information, documents, or names that could soon come to light. This has led some to speculate that she might be putting her own husband at risk and potentially implicating them both.
And I suppose what I want to explore with you this hour is why do you think she said it? I mean, let's be clear about the rumours, or the smears as she would describe them, that she's talking about. So there are people, including, for example, Donald Trump's biographer, Michael Wolff, who alleges that it was Jeffrey Epstein who first introduced Melania Trump to Donald Trump. She wasn't, of course, called Melania Trump at that point. She was called Melania Knaus, I think. And I can understand why, if you are Melania, and that is not the truth, and fundamentally we don't really know, do we? But if you are Melania, you want to push back on that. You want to deny that. And I can understand why Donald Trump would also have a vested interest in that myth being dispelled. But did this really dispel that myth, if it is a myth? Because I was aware, dimly, that that allegation had been made by the likes of Michael Wolff and others, but there will have been tens of millions of people in the US and around the world who had never heard that theory, but now have. I had never heard it suggested that Melania Trump had any kind of relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm assuming when she says that, she is implying that there are those alleging she had a sexual relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. I had never heard that rumour, and yet now I have, because she repeated it on national television. She denied being a victim of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, there are those who allege that she was essentially victim to the US, and therefore to Donald Trump. But again, is she not amplifying those rumours, and if so, why? And it was fascinating. We heard her there say, it was not Jeffrey Epstein who introduced me to, quote, Donald Trump.
Survivors connected to the Jeffrey Epstein case began reaching out to one another almost immediately. Some of them strongly pushed back, saying that asking survivors to come forward again could place the burden back on them instead of holding powerful institutions accountable. They argued that responsibility should rest with the system, investigators, the courts, and those in power, not just the victims.
Nobody has done nothing. But yet, you want to re-traumatize us and ask us to go in front of Congress and tell them our story, which we've had told some of them already. So now you want us to tell them again, under oath, and re-traumatize us, and then do absolutely nothing. That sounds like a idea. It sounds like you're just trying to shift attention from something to something else. So, how does this benefit the Trump family, is my question.
And joining us, senior reporter at The Bulwark, Will Sommer, and MS Now senior legal reporter, Lisa Rubin. Lisa, the survivors clearly want accountability and justice. They have made that so plain over the course of the last year. Are the First Lady's comments bolstering or hindering their push from what you know?
I would say, Antonia, that many of the survivors with whom I speak feel similarly to Marina. I know Marina. She was under victim one in the 2019 indictment of Jeffrey Epstein because she was by him here in New York, starting at the point in time she was 14 years old. And many of them, particularly people like Marina, who have shown up on our air and others, women who have been participants at press conferences, who have talked to the press at great length, they feel like they have already carried more than their share of the burden. They wanted more answers from Congress and from the Department of Justice, not another opportunity to be heard. And so, yes, there are probably some survivors out there that are appreciative of the First Lady's attempt at recentering their stories. I don't think anyone would say that recentering the survivors is not a good idea. But to the extent that that comes at the expense of further meaningful investigation of who was responsible for these women have already endured and their trauma, absolutely not. You will hear more and more folks like Marina, although she is perhaps more candid than some, just that frustration and that underlying unease with what they feel is an incomplete, shoddily run investigation, both on the congressional side and at the Department of Justice, Antonia.
Others viewed it in a different way. Some believe her statement might reopen a conversation that many felt was quietly fading away. They saw her call for testimony as an opportunity to bring attention back to the victims and keep pressure on authorities. At the same time, political tensions began to rise around it. Government figures started weighing in, with some supporting the idea of hearings, and others questioning why so many documents connected to Jeffrey Epstein are still not public. Out of millions of files tied to Epstein, only a portion has been released, while the rest remain sealed, with officials saying there are legal limits on what can be shared. And that's where the frustration grows. For many people following the story, it feels like the full picture is still being kept out of reach. The situation became even more complicated when it appeared that Donald Trump himself may not have been fully aware that Melania Trump was going to make that statement. That detail made it seem like her move was independent, not part of a coordinated plan, but something she chose to do on her own. Some analysts even suggested it pointed to a divide in messaging at the highest level. And when you place this moment alongside everything else, the ongoing document releases, past testimonies, and the names that continue to resurface, it adds another layer to a story that already feels far from over. Because now it's not just whistleblowers or investigators keeping the conversation alive. It's people at the very top. The central issue hasn't changed. People are still asking what is in the unreleased files, who is connected, and whether the full truth will ever come out. But moments like this remind everyone that the story isn't going away, and that there could be major names facing consequences soon. What do you think will happen next?